So hello and welcome back to Go Again Gaming. My name is Az, and today we're going to be speaking about the top 5 reasons as to why Azalea could be incredible. Now before we go into it, please make sure you like this video and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit a little bell notification if you want to be notified of any future videos here on the channel. I will take a moment to also shout out my affiliates, the Card Vault. For any sealed product for Flesh and Blood or Ultra Pro accessories, go and check them out and use my Go Again Gaming discount code. Make sure you keep an eye on their Everfest product when it comes out. I'll also give a shout out to Wraith, who I've recently partnered with. A fantastic 0-calorie energy drink. Now, a lot of us, including myself, used to pound down the monsters and the full-fat, sugary drinks, and that needs to stop, really. So get yourself some Wraith energy drink and use the Go Again Gaming discount code to receive 10% off your order there. And, you know, this stuff just keeps you awake and fueled into the early hours when you're throwing down cards. So go and check them out and use the link in the description to get 10% off. It's lovely. This is Pear Drop, this one. You just mix it with water, cold water, and voila. It's keeping you up instead of filling you with sugar and making your belly get massive, which is what my issue is. However, enough of that. And if you want to support me directly on Patreon, again, links in the description box below. And I'll, of course, go and check out the goagaingaming.com website. As you can see, I've got a nice piece of art in the background there now, which is the canvas of the Demonistry playmat, or the Realm of the Forbidden playmat. So yeah, go and check out goagaingaming.com for stock updates on that. I will be getting a lot more soon. However, let's go straight into this. The top 5 reasons as to why Azalea could be incredible. Now, a lot of us do want Azalea to be good. She appeals to a lot of us out there, especially the sort of emo, goth, metalhead type vibes, because she is hot, let's be honest, in that leather dominatrix style outfit. I mean, who wouldn't? Do you know what I mean? But they continue to be plagued by the Ranger problem. The Ranger problem is basically, we saw this, and I asked this to Red Zone Rogue in the Fresh and Buds podcast recently, is what is the main issue? And Kel pointed out that it is the inherent downside of the bow mechanic not being able to shoot your weapon or use your weapon, because you need a card to be able to use your weapon. You need an arrow in your quiver or your arsenal to be able to shoot your weapon. So that is a big issue, and hopefully that gets addressed somewhere in Everfest. Yeah, I mean, going on to Everfest, I do believe there's going to be some spicy stuff for Rangers in general, but I think especially for Azalea and what Azalea wants to do. And again, there's a lot of speculations out there at the moment that we could see specializations for each hero in Everfest, sorry. Because in the article by LSS, I'll flash it up now, it says that all heroes will get support. So does that mean we get named hero support, or does it mean just generic cards that can be used by the aforementioned class? Like, we're just going to get Ranger cards, which Lexi and Azalea can use. Or when they say hero cards, I'll flash it up again for you. Does it mean the named heroes? We will see. But I do think we're going to get a lot of cool stuff for Azalea, but I'm just going to be pointing out what is cool about Azalea and what she can do at the moment, which can still make her relevant in some cases, albeit she is fighting an uphill battle. But cut her some slack, and I hope a lot of people are searching for Azalea videos at the moment, because I do think she's going to come into her own come the Everfest stuff. But I do think she can still pose a big threat before that comes out, but we will see. I'm no metagame analyst here. I'm just, you know, spitballing theme and flavour and ideas at you. So if you're a viewer of this channel, just going on to that point, you know that I'm no metagame analyst. I just hope to share my thoughts and opinions and maybe just spark some other ideas and strategies that may not have been brought into the limelight. I'm sure it has, but there we go. That's just what this is what I do. So here are the 5 reasons why Azalea could be incredible. So first of all, she can, or is she, or can she be disruptive against the current meta? So obviously we've got cards like, I'll flash these up for you, Red in the Ledger, Remorseless, and Hamstring Shot, all having some really, really good effects for people that are running go wide decks, which tends to be a lot of the meta at the moment, currently with our sort of Lightning Briars and obviously other Voltaire, Strike Twice, Lexi decks. There's a lot of go wide, a lot of massive aggro going on. So with these cards, I'll flash them up now for you. So first of all, Red in the Ledger. Red in the Ledger just basically means if it hits someone, they can only activate one action next turn, which is very oppressive for the go wide decks, because they can only activate one action, which is, you know, in a 0 cost Briar deck or something that cares about just playing your hand out for free. The only way, well, you can't do that. You have to block a Red in the Ledger. So I think that Red in the Ledger is just ridiculously good, and that makes a lot of players want to play Azalea just because of Azalea's specialization cards, which can't be used by any other ranger at the moment, and rightly so. It is an extremely horrible card, Red in the Ledger. And can it disrupt what is going on out there at the moment? I think it can, as long as you can get it through, because people don't want to be seeing that get through if they're an aggro player. They want to chuck as much equipment and cards under that as they can to stop it from happening. So I do think it is a very powerful card and something that the meta might not see coming. And spoiler alert, I am going to the Kingdom Gaming Invitational, and I'm going to be bringing Azalea with me as my deck of choice. I may be borrowing a Spring Tunic from someone, but yeah, otherwise I'll just run the Heart and Cross strat. But I digress. So yeah, Red in the Ledger could be very disruptive against this hyper-aggressive meta. Same with Remorseless. I'll flash up Remorseless now for you. So it's a basically a tax effect on your life if you allow it to hit you. So every action that you play on your next turn, if it's hit you the turn before, is going to cost you a life. Now, life is a very, very important resource, especially in those decks that don't want to block and just want to lay their hand out every turn. Remorseless can be a good way of potentially stopping that from happening. So yeah, a good card there. And similar to that, we also have Hamstring Shot. It's not as oppressive as all the ice mechanics out there at the moment, but again, just a good ranger card, and it's great for taxing the first attack that they make in the turn, which is great for obviously disrupting their intended turn and making them use resources on the 0 cost cards, which might not be as fantastic for that one resource for the 0 cost effect. So making them, hitting them with a Hamstring Shot could also screw up their entire turn if they are running hyper aggro, hyper 0 Cheerios or whatever it's called decks. So yeah, those 3 cards I think would be good in the current meta. So those are the arrow cards you definitely want to be using in Azalea if you are bringing her to an event, I think. But yeah, that is the question. So the first thing. Could be incredible. Could she be incredible? Could she be disruptive against the meta with these cards? Yes, I do think that would be the case. But again, if you disagree with any of these points, or if you get an idea of your own from listening to me ramble on, then leave a comment in the section below. I'd be highly appreciative of that. Point number 2. She can do massive attacks. So Azalea can dominate a massive arrow attack in one stack of cards that can literally dictate the rest of the game. So as long as you can pull off one of those combos, you should be in a good position, but obviously it's a risky but rewarding play. So I've got an example of a play here, so I'll flash up the cards as I explained. So you've got a 4-card hand and you've got 1 card in your arse. So you play Seek and Destroy from your arse. You then play the Knock the Death Whistle for nothing and go get a red in the ledger. You put that on top of your deck. You then use the Knock and the Death Whistle's reload effect to reload any old card into your arse, and that's that. Then you activate Azalea to give the red in the ledger dominate. So you basically do a switcheroo with your arse and the top of your deck. So obviously your red in the ledger that you've searched for will then go and get dominate, which is nice. Then you just play out some 0 cost pump cards like Take Aim, which are really, really good for just pumping up your next arrow attack. So hopefully you've got a stack of reds in there, but yellows and reds would be fantastic. I even run the blue Take Aims in this deck as well, just to sort of push more damage over the top, which they don't really want to let through. So yeah, then you crack the Heart and Cross strap, to make the dominated red in the ledger essentially free, and then you fire away a huge arrow that literally wipes out their entire next turn, because the Seek and Destroy comboed with the red in the ledger is probably one of the best lines that you can do if you can pump that arrow out for free with the heart and cross strap, or potentially a tunic trigger, or you and you stack it up with massive buffs from take aims and overflexes and what have you. I think overflexes are good, but I don't think they're as good as take aim because they do cost a resource to do. So I think take aim is just strictly better, or nimblism. Having the nimblisms in there as well are very, very good. So yeah, you could do a massive attack with Azalea with some awesome on-hit triggers as well, with Seek and Destroy and Red in the Ledger being one of the main lines you do want to try and get off. Because that can dictate the entire game. One of those attacks getting through is absolutely horrible. As long as you can keep up the tempo after that, you're in a good position with Azalea, I think. So yeah, I thought that was a good one to point out. The third thing that could make Azalea incredible is the fact that she has Dominate on her hero ability. Now, having a Dominate enabler for 0 cost on your hero ability is pretty strong. So as long as you've got the insight to the top of your deck, you can basically dominate any card. Or dominate your arrow attacks, sorry. And especially dominating the late game is amazing when you're preparing for a massive finisher, and it's very hard for them to obviously interact with that locked on arrow attack, especially if you combine it with Increased Attention, which is another good buff card, but it does cost resources. So it's, those sort of things, the overflexes and Increased Attentions and take aims, you can sort of experiment with that as to what you want to have and what you want to do, but I do like the 0 cost pump. But Increased Attention basically just won't allow you to play defense reactions either to the combat chain. So it just makes things even harder to block, because they can't use like Sink Belows and Fateful Scenes and all that good stuff that normally does block out a lot of the damage. So yeah, Increased Attention is very, very good in that regard. But yeah, having Dominate on your hero is just brilliant, especially for those horrible arrow cards that we discussed earlier. The fourth reason why Azalea could be incredible is a lot of people tell me that these cards are garbage, and I guess I agree, but I do think that this is something that people would not see coming, and that is the fact that she has like these unexpected trap cards and trick cards that she can use. So Ranger has access to a load of awesome tricks, which I believe will be expanded upon in Everfest, but the first one of those is trap cards. So these are basically sort of defense reactions that can be played from the arsenal only, but they pose some very interesting choices when they're activated. The only downside to traps is that you can't play them from your hand, which is a bit of a shame. If they were printed as a generic defense reaction, but you only got the additional effect if you played them from the arsenal, that would have been a lot better, and would have made a lot of people consider them, instead of the Sink Belows and Fateful Scenes, the traps would be a lot better. But I do think they are still overlooked, and a lot of people do not prepare for these traps to happen, which I think is going to be quite cool to play with, especially with the obvious buffs that we're going to get in Everfest. But the traps in decks that I've made and stuff, ideally you want to either be using those to pitch to pay for your cards, or by putting them into the arsenal as part of your end step, so you can actually use them on your opponent's turn to defend with. And the really, really good ones in there are... my favourite one is Pitfall Trap, so I'll flash this up for you now. So this basically blocks for 3 if you play it from your arsenal, but then it says it deals 2 damage to the defending hero unless they pay a resource, which I think is good because it strips their hand away. It obviously affects what they're doing after that attack's come in. So it's like, oh, do I want to pitch a card, or do I want to use a resource to pay for this extra 2 damage, or shall I just take the 2 damage? It's basically a way to get through extra damage on your opponent's turn that you might not have got on your turn, which I think why Pitfall Trap is pretty good. And obviously it blocks for 3, as well. When you play that out of your arsenal for nothing, it's pretty decent. So again, I do think the traps and the trap mechanic is something that's overlooked at the moment. Maybe we'll get some more stuff that supports those traps in Everfest, or when we go back to the pits, potentially. But I do like the trap cards, especially the other one that I think is very good is the tripwire trap, which is basically similar to your sink belows and fateful scenes, with the fact that it costs nothing but it still blocks for 4 from the arsenal. Obviously it's a trap card, so it has to be played from arsenal. And then it says hit effects don't trigger unless they pay a resource, which I think is very, very good. You know, there's a lot of hit triggers out there at the moment, and having that built into the card and then stopping that from happening unless they then throw another resource under it, I think is very, very overlooked potentially. So yeah, another great trick that Azalea has, or Rangers have, is the take cover defensive reaction. So these are awesome. It can be a direct replacement for the aforementioned sink belows and fateful scenes as well, because it blocks for the red one, at least blocks for 4 and can be played for nothing. And this is just like a generic defense reaction. You don't have to play it from arsenal like you do with the traps, but it is fantastic because it blocks for 4, and then it also allows you to reload a card into your arsenal on your opponent's turn. So the good thing about this is, if we go back to the traps earlier, what you could potentially do is, as a defense reaction, you could react with a take cover. You could then reload a trap into your arsenal, and then if they pass priority back to you, you could then activate your trap as well. So the traps will then work with the take cover. So I think that's a nice little bit of synergy there, having to reload traps into your arsenal as a result of taking cover, which could then do some damage. It could, affect your the opponent's hit triggers. There's also the rock slide trap as well, which could essentially be a 4-block blue pitch if they don't pay the extra resources to get the -2 on the attack. It's again, you got a lot of access to these cool cards and tricks with Azalea, but there is a feel bad element with this as well, because if you have to blindly activate Azalea and you put a defense reaction into the arsenal, then just kills your entire turn. So there's pros and cons, but I do think these things are not accounted for in the meta at all at the moment. So pick up the traps while you still can. I think they're going to be quite cool in the future, especially if we see more Ranger support, and I'm sure we're going to see that. But on the take cover as well, you can of course place an arrow into your arsenal for easy access next turn, which is also very good. And I think you should only play reloading defense reactions and traps as the defense reactions in the deck, surely for sort of synergistic and thematic purposes. So you don't really want to be using fateful scenes or sink belows. You want to be using traps or take covers in this as well, in your Ranger, especially Azalea decks, I think. Although fateful scene is definitely a good one that you could include in here either way. But for thematic and synergistic purposes, I would use the take covers over the other ones. And finally, we do have another trick that Ranger has access to, and that is the Fein Death card. So another potentially great card against the meta, which basically just says no to the next time you take damage. So with loads of attacks coming in at you, you can essentially take a bit of damage early on in the turn, but then when you got a massive Enlightened Strike coming after you, or a Command and Conquer or something, you can then just say, no, you're not going to hit me on that card, I'm going to play Fein Death and I'm going to prevent that damage. So it's potentially a crippling blow to your opponent, because especially if they Command and Conquer, it says that defense reactions can't be played to its chain link. So if you play Fein Death instead, it prevents that damage, protects your arsenal, and then just blows their attack out of the water. So I think Fein Death is another thing that is potentially good in the meta, because you're going to be taking multiple hits most of the time. So Fein Death allows you to just say no to one of those hits, which is going to be the pivot hit. So they're going to hit you with a ball lightning and then hit you with a massive card afterwards. You can just say, no, I'm going to Fein Death that. I'm going to avoid that completely. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good card. And again, probably not something that people are expecting to run into. So yeah, that could potentially turn the game on its head as well, because you're potentially stopping one of their massive attacks going through that they may have put their entire hand into, sort of thing. So yeah, Fein Death, another great card, I think is underutilised. I'm being lazy in this video, I'm not editing it, I'm just streaming it from my OBS. And finally, the 5th reason why Azalea could be incredible is because she's not expected to do well at all. So, as we know, Azalea is known as being one of the worst heroes in the game at the moment, for reasons that we've already said about the inherent bow disadvantage, not being able to attack every turn unless you have certain cards and all that sort of thing. But use that to your advantage. The meta is not geared to deal with Azalea, and a lot of players will think that it's an auto win when they come up against an Azalea deck, or people just don't use Azalea at all. People just don't bother. But I do think that she does have some awesome upsides, and when you do hit someone with her, with a red in the ledgers and what have you, it's extremely hard to sort of get back into it. Especially with the hyper-aggressive aggro meta that we're seeing at the moment. If you get hit by a red in the ledger, you can only activate one action. What are you going to do with your 0-cost card? But yeah, thanks for watching. It's been interesting just talking about this, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. So leave a comment in the section below. And again, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Peace.